Welcome to the Business Beware Show, where we give your business a voice. Here are Robert and Ashley.
All right, welcome back to the show. We are getting ready to talk to Scott Gerber, who is an awesome guy. He just wrote the book, Never Get a Real Job, and we're getting ready to talk to Scott. And we've had him on the show twice already. Yeah, twice already. And he is an awesome
Enjoyed
guy.
every minute of it.
Yep. And he is getting ready to rock the world Generation Y. That is for sure. So let's welcome Scott. Scott, how you doing?
I am doing great. Thanks for having me.
Oh yeah, thank you for being on the show. We're so pumped to talk to you, and we know it's going to get a little nitty gritty.
It's been a little crazy, but it wouldn't be exciting a day in my life without something happening. So.
I know, right? I know. Yeah. So okay, so you have the book Never Get a Real Job that just came out. So tell us about it.
Well, basically, and we've talked about this before on your show, guys, we are facing youth unemployment in chronic mass numbers. It was just released that only 24% of 2010 college graduates had jobs lined up upon college graduation. And I feel like if we keep going with this work hard, get good grades, go to school and get a job mantra, if we keep pushing this resume-driven handout society nonsense that the older generations seem to still think is applicable to Gen Y, frankly, we're going to become a lost generation. So what Never Get a Real Job teaches readers is basically from the trenches, my experiences, through my failed company. The company I refer to in the book is the company that shall not be named. And basically teaches them everything I learned failing through a company that almost took me through bankruptcy, as well as the practical, hard knocks, tips, tricks, and advice they need to know in a non-BS, no BS kind of way that's going to teach them to be entrepreneurial.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
And one thing we were talking before we started the interview, Scott, was there's so much going on out there, and I've been a big proponent of this for years. I've got 3 daughters. Ashley's the oldest, and I've told them, look, the sky's the limit. If you think that you can do more than what the sky has to offer, go for that too. And don't be scared because you're a girl, but don't be scared of anything because the only way you will be limited is when you limit yourself.
Absolutely. I will say this. Thankfully, you and I share, philosophically on the same page about entrepreneurship. I will say it's parents, though, that gave that kind of advice with no follow-through, that were working in the regular world in a construct, in a social norm that they knew and understood, that gave that same advice, that today they think because they gave that advice, well, now it's not so true, so now you got to go get a real job. Now it's oh, don't reach for the stars, but you didn't really get the chance to do that, so now you got to go pay the bills. Because the older generations didn't learn it and didn't understand it, and frankly, most of them were not like you, who went out there and made something of themselves and taught their families to do the same. We're now trying to fight against the social norm that is destroying us from within because of a lack of education, because of the overabundance of educational institutions, globalization, automation, you name it. Everything is fighting against this quote-unquote real job mantra that we're supposed to be part of, and unless we, again, transcend upon it, unless we move towards entrepreneurship in mass numbers, frankly, like I said, we are doomed to be a lost generation.
One thing, too, Scott, that I've noticed is a lot of people, just like you said, they'll tell their kids, do what you can, do the best that you can, and everything else. But once they fall just a little bit short, what one thing you need to do is, that generation loves security. And if you love security, then what happens is you get a secure job. You get a secure, go get that secure job and gives you hospitalization, everything else. But look at all these people now that are in food lines, literally in food lines, because of that secure job, because it's not there anymore.
Well, it blows my mind the most, and I talk about this in the book. I always say I had the most amazing mother growing up. She was a great mother, but a terrible business advisor. Because here she was, and we were talking before the show that Ashley read the book, so she obviously saw the introduction, where I talk about my relationship with my mother, who was a real job advocate to a T. She is a woman who was, 20 plus years in the New York City Board of Education system with a, quote, stable job that, frankly, nowadays you can't even get a teacher's job in many places. Why? Because there's no revenue from the government to pay the employees, because there's no tax revenue, and where does that come from? Businesses. But anyway, we won't get into that now. But frankly, we are at a crossroads because, again, it is this thing that people assume that failure is a bad thing, and we're so afraid to fall. And that's such bad advice. Failure is going to allow us to be successful because we have not felt the sting of failure. We've been so coddled as a generation for so long, and we were put on such a pedestal that now we're only first falling. And we're falling incorrectly. We're not falling because we're supposed to be proactive. We're falling because we're being passive. And that is a major, major problem in this society. So frankly, the way I see it is, and I actually put a post on this on Never Get a Real Job today, saying why it's less risky to never get a real job. And I've already gotten like death threats already. It's great. You know,
I sent you one of those, matter of fact.
Anonymous, though.
Thank you. But again, that's the construct we live in. And I feel, again, not to beat a dead horse, but we really do need to move away from this old way of doing things because it's not getting us anywhere. So unless we start being productive, unless we start being proactive, we're going to go nowhere fast.
Well, you know, Scott, too, the old way, let's face it, folks, it's not working. And that's the same thing we preach at Business Beware is, a lot of times you've talked about niche businesses, do niche, and I'm a big proponent of that. I say you can find niche customers too. Throw away the old ones, throw away the bad ones. Let's concentrate on the good ones and build your business.
Right.
And one thing that you said, Scott, that I really like, I've always told my girls and everybody else that I've known, it's not a mistake if you learn from it.
It's education. One thing that was my biggest life lesson, I always say, again, going back to the book, in Never Get a Real Job, I talk specifically about the company that shall not be named. And it was a company that I started when I was 20 years old that nearly bankrupted me. It left me with $700 left in my bank account by the end of it. And at the time, clearly, it's like, my God, that is the worst thing that ever could happen. But upon reflection, now where I am in my career, in leading this movement with, young entrepreneurship across the country and beyond, that failure was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. Because what I learned in the entrepreneurial trenches is something that you cannot be taught in a school, something you cannot learn just from hearing war stories alone. And so feeling the sting of failure actually made me into a more efficient entrepreneur. And that today is paying off its dividends.
Absolutely. And I tell you, one thing that I've learned, and as my daughters have gone to college too, and I never went to college, and, I've done fine. I'm just a good, I've worked hard. But the thing that I tell them is when you go to college, what they want you to do is they want you to be a lifetime college student.
Yeah.
That's their job. I mean, now, when Leah went to college, our baby, they went in there and they give her curriculum to where she's going to be in school just for a regular degree for 5 years.
They make it keep going.
Yeah. Let's hold that thought. We're gonna be right back. We've got Scott Gerber talking about his new book, and we'll be right back.
All right, we are back talking with Scott Gerber and with his new book, Never Get a Real Job, and we are back with Scott.
Scott, when we left, we were talking about all these people in college. These the people who are what do they call them?
Lifelong students.
Yeah, they want everybody to be a lifelong student. What do you think about that?
Well, it's funny. Again, going back to the older generation saying that they know better, the worst advice I've heard recently is if you can't get a job, go back into the education system. So I have a great idea. Let's be failed once by the education system, be in debt up to our eyeballs, and then say, wait a minute, I've got a great idea. If I just go and learn another useless skill set, I'll be okay. Again, I know I get in a lot of trouble, but I always like to say this phrase, also in the book. Ashley, I'm sure you know what's coming with my MBA joke. I always like to say, what's the difference between an MBA and toilet paper and a startup? And I say one is actually useful. And the thing is why I say that is not because education is not important. I never stress that. Education can be very important. It's vital. And there's no statistic out there that's going to say that college hampers your entrepreneurial endeavors. It does nothing but help. But you have to use college in the right way. The networking opportunities, the ability to get to the people based on your education, learning the right classes. I mean, come on. Let's face it, guys. There are a lot of students out there that went to school, went a little late to this class, decided not to take that one. I mean, I'm living proof. I never took a single business or mathematics class, and yet I've ended up where I am today. So it's doable, but you have to get the most out of your education. I would say where I went right with my education and where I was very fortunate is that I did have an amazing network that came from New York University that has helped me grow. But I went to film school, and let's look, last I checked, I don't think I'm in Hollywood. So, not to say that's anything against Tisch School of the Arts. They're an amazing school, and I give a lot of money to them for charity, and I love the arts. But again, I think that it's about making smarter decisions around what is best for you and not best for what other people are telling you is best for your educational knowledge.
Right.
That's exactly right. And one thing that you touched on is and I've said many times is, the thing that I think is one of the best things for the average person who's going to go to college is, vocational, because you go and you learn a specific thing. You know what I'm talking about? And then what you can do is you can take that, you can build on it, and you may only go to school for 2 years, and then you're out in the workforce, and then all of a sudden you've got 2 years, behind you. That's fine, but you don't owe all the monies and everything else. You're off and running.
And you're making a living.
Again, it's I think what we have to do in this country, most importantly, is go back to the education system and say, where has it failed us most? And that is taking out all of the impractical educational lessons that people from old, schools said, well, you need this to be, a well-rounded person. Well, that's great. But that's not helping our young people go into something on their own. The fact of the matter is there is no major entrepreneurial educational force in this country. Sure, you have select programs, but you have nothing that is helping to build these young people actually have a practical lifestyle choice. They're basically being told, you have to go and be an employee. That is what our education system teaches, if anything else. And we, the folks that actually put ourselves out there, make the job creation that are going to end up being the reason our country rebounds, we're the ones that are scorned for it. Now all of a sudden they need us, and now it's, well, they really need us now, so let's try to get something for a small little piece, a small little crumb from TARP money, or this other nonsense that you hear about. So frankly, as far as I'm concerned, not to get too political on this, I think that this country is so backwards when it comes to what they should do for small business, what they're not doing for young people today, frankly, because the system is trying to make sure it can maintain itself. The powers that be don't know what they're doing, and they're trying to basically say, well, we might not know, but we're going to keep working as if we do. Not a good idea.
Well, absolutely. And the thing, Scott, the powers that be, they're writing the rules, man. I mean, come on, let's face it. And if this doesn't work, they're gonna make an amendment to it to fit what they think should work. And they're just as bad as education people, because they're as old school as you can get.
Right.
They're cheating you.
Well, in his book, though, he was talking about, too, I love this because he talks about, like, the people that write this stuff. It's like, are they really writing this stuff and these kids are believing it? You know what I mean? Like, it's like they've never actually been there. You know what I mean? And I love that, what you point out in the book, because it's so true,
But they're like sponges. I mean, if somewhere, somehow, sometime, some people like Scott, like you and myself and Ashley and some other people are going to say, guys, it's time to get back to the basics. What works? What doesn't work? Okay, if it doesn't work, let's set it over here. If it does work, let's go here and let's build on it.
The problem is there's too much vested in what doesn't work. That's the problem. And because of that, now you have to have a major paradigm shift that nobody is prepared to start talking about. The fact is we are not a resume-driven society anymore. I don't care. There's no numbers to support at all that the old way of doing things is ever coming back. And frankly, every single time I hear some politician talk about job creation, makes me want to vomit, because 9 times out of 10, all they're talking about is the same garbage that tries to get them elected and not about the actual, facts. Fact is, there are 81 million young people unemployed. That is not a deniable statistic. Fact, 24% out of 100% of this year's job force from Gen Y is the only amount that is employed. Fact. So let's stop talking about BS. Let's start talking about practical nuts and bolts ways of getting people to create an income. Not Facebook. I mean, that's the one thing I talk about. Everybody that's been attacking me lately keeps saying you're advocating something that is not possible, that young people in mass numbers cannot be entrepreneurial. And to them, I say, you idiots, it absolutely is. The problem is it's the myths out there. It's the nonsense that we've been force-fed, that you have to build a Mark Zuckerberg enterprise, that entrepreneurship is about getting rich by 30, that it's about everything that is absolutely untrue. I always say the more boring a business is, the better it is. The less sexy it is, the less original it is, the better it is. If you keep trying to reinvent the wheel, you're going to be doomed to be run over by it. And if you don't keep your business simple, stupid, guess what? You're stupid. So bottom line is, if we follow these simple things, stop thinking Facebook, start thinking pool cleaning company with a cool brand. Stop thinking Groupon valuation for $6 billion in Google, and start thinking about building a junk removal company. The point is, we can move this generation forward. It needs a reformer, it needs a body, it needs a group, and thankfully myself, the Young Entrepreneur Council, of which Ashley is a member, is looking to make what I will make sure will be dynamic, systematic change in the way Gen Y operates in the new way of the economy.
Well, all I've got to say, Scott, is good for you.
Bring it.
That's all I've got to say, man. I've been waiting to hear this. Of course, like I told you earlier, I just turned 50. And I'm going to tell you something. I've been putting up with this BS for so long. Yeah. And then you get to a point to where, how do you change it? how do you do something with this? And then you get to the point, well, it's too late for my generation, but for my kids, I don't want to see this happen. Now you just had a new baby, and so that's why I love this enthusiasm that you're going with it, because you're turning this into something. We
Right.
we're out of time and everything, but let's bring it back for just a little bit on the next segment. You'll do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's do it.
All right.
Yeah.
We're gonna be right
That's
back. Don't go anywhere, because we're gonna be right
We'll be
back.
right back.
Okay.
All right, welcome back to the show. We still have Scott Gerber, and he's going to tell us where we can find the book, where we can find him, where you can get in touch with him, everything. So I'm going to stop talking and let him tell you everything.
Definitely, visit nevergetarealjob.com. That's where you can find all the information about the Young Entrepreneur Council, the book, Never Get a Real Job, which is now available everywhere books are sold, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, 800 CEO rating, bound. Definitely check it out. And just frankly, just to leave on one final point, this really is about a movement that will change the face of Gen Y. I've come on this show now 3 times, and I'm really excited to have folks like you who are in this corner, because frankly, it's going to take proactive folks like yourselves to really help this message get out there to the masses. And for that, I thank you guys for the opportunity. And if anybody wants to reach out to me, I always try my best to get through email. I was just having a conversation before telling you guys, after the New York Times article, my head's about to explode with like 3,000 plus emails in my phone. But the email address is Scott, SCOTT, at askgerber.com. Email me. I will try my best to get back to you. But in general, visit nevergetarealjob.com, pick up the book, and make sure that you guys keep checking out Business Beware.